Skirt. You know what it is. This is Game Day Goons 2023-2024 NBA season preview for the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's get right into it. All right. The Philadelphia 76ers are coming off an offseason filled with controversy. And the one word I would use to describe this offseason for the Sixers is uncertainty. We don't know what's going to be going on for the Philadelphia 76ers on opening night, let alone for the rest of the season. So most of this controversy is surrounding two people, Daryl Morey and James Harden. A match once made in heaven is now, seemingly trouble in paradise. The two are not seeing eye to eye, and they're not friends anymore. They're not cool, and Harden says he will never play for Daryl Morey or under Daryl Morey ever again. So what does this mean for the Philadelphia 76ers as a franchise? It means they have some decisions to make, and they need to make those decisions fast. They need to figure out what they're going to do with James Harden, and they need to figure it out tomorrow. They need to figure it out yesterday, because opening night is fast approaching, and to have one player have all that money tied up in one player like that, and that player is not even going to take the floor, it's a recipe for disaster, especially for a team that has championship aspirations and has failed to meet those expectations year after year. The clock is ticking for this team because they got an MVP caliber player like Joel Embiid who really wants to play at the highest level and really wants to achieve the highest type of accomplishments that you can in this league. And he's not going to be able to if you don't put the appropriate pieces around him. Just watch what he just did with France. He left them at the altar because he wants to win a gold medal, and he sees that the United States is the option to do that. So this is a guy who isn't trying to waste no time. He wants to get to the highest level in this league. And if they can't do that for him, he's going to want to go elsewhere. It's going to happen. You heard it here first. If he doesn't get the type of pieces that he needs around him this year, expect Joel Embiid to request a trade in this season. Now, outside of all the drama with James Harden and Daryl Morey, the Sixers did do one good thing this offseason in bringing in a really nice piece in Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre is the type of player that can play in the starting lineup or off the bench. And if James Harden does get shipped out, and if he does get shipped out for pennies, you do have a player that can bring you some lightning offense in Kelly Oubre. I mean, we've seen him be a top performer before, especially during his days in Phoenix, as well as some of his time with the Golden State Warriors as well. And this is also a guy who you can plug in there even if James Harden and Daryl Morey are able to patch things up. He's a player that can come off the bench like he did in Charlotte last year and bring you 20 points a game. So that's definitely a plus for the Sixers. Now, aside from Kelly Oubre, the Sixers did re-sign Paul Reed, who's a fan favorite for that team and has a lot of potential and a pretty high ceiling and could end up being a building block for that team if they do in fact end up having to trade Joel Embiid because he requests to be moved. They also signed Mo Bamba and brought in Patrick Beverley, who's going to bring some grit to that team and a better perimeter defender, which is kind of necessary when you got a player like James Harden playing who isn't, exactly the spitting image of a defensive-minded player. To bring in a guy like Pat Beverley who's going to go into the game with just that on his mind, that's a nice get for them. And we'll see if it makes a difference if they do happen to make a real push and get further into the playoffs this year. On the betting side of things, it does get a little sticky with them having an over-under of 49.5 games. If they don't manage to make something happen around Harden, either keeping him or getting a good return for him, that's a big ask for that team, only anchored down by a star player like Joel Embiid and maybe some other upper tier role players, but no one that's a real needle mover, no one that's a real difference maker. I mean, you got Tyrese Maxey, you got Tobias Harris, but those guys aren't really doing what they need to be doing on a championship type level. So it's going to be tough for them to really get to the expectations that you might have had for them prior to all this James Harden debacle. So the 49.5 over under, me personally, I'd want to stay away from that if I was a betting man. In terms of fantasy, you got a lot to pick from on the Sixers. Of course, you got Joel Embiid, who's a top 5 pick in most drafts. The only thing with Joel Embiid is, the only hitch is he does have a bit of an injury history. And he also just signed with Skechers. So that's a bit problematic if you're a guy who's had lower leg injuries. Now you're signing with Skechers. I don't like it. Maybe I'm being biased as a Nike head, but I don't like that. I don't like anyone wearing Skechers in the NBA. That's a big L. So There is, of course, Joel Embiid. Aside from him, James Harden, if he does play, he's a guy you can anchor your assists with, anchor your point guard stats, your scoring stats, your not field goal percentage, your free throw percentage. He's a guy who can really shine in that sense, but he might not be playing there next year. He might be a Shanghai Shark next year. So we don't know what to expect from James Harden. Of course, the other guys I mentioned previously, Tyrese Maxey is another high ceiling guy, but he's not really met his expectations quite yet. Tobias Harris, of course, and Kelly Oubre, who's a guy to maybe target in the later rounds because he might fly under the radar in your draft. So overall outlook for the Philadelphia 76ers in 2023-2024. Like I said, the word I used to describe this team and their outlook is uncertainty. I don't know what to expect with this team because so much is up in the air. There's so much things that we're not quite sure about yet. If James Harden stays, if they are able to keep James Harden on the books and able to keep him happy, because that is a big factor. If they manage to just keep him and he's still disgruntled, I don't expect to see too much out of James Harden in terms of success on that team. I think he's a bit of a diva as a player, so you're really making yourself vulnerable if you do keep James Harden and he's not a happy camper. So unless they manage to really patch things up in a nice way, in an amicable way, and him and Daryl Morey can, kiss and make up, pause. If they're able to do that, then yeah, I like their outlook, and I do think they are a championship contending team, even in the bolstered Eastern Conference. But without that, I don't know, man. It's going to be tough for that team to really make some noise, especially the kind of noise they want to make. Gone are the days that they're happy just being a playoff team. They want to be a championship contending team, and it's not going to be easy this year with all this uncertainty. Okay, this is Game Day Goons. I am Mateo, and this was your 2023-2024 NBA season preview for the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to see y'all later.